Hello and welcome to the Unlocking Behaviour Change Podcast, the show all about psychology and changing behaviour. My name is Jamie West. I'm a writer, musician and a performer, and I'm joined by Professor Robert West. How are you today, Robert?
Yeah, I'm good. I've just come back from a couple of days in Liverpool, which I hadn't been to for quite a long time. And the central shopping areas really come on. It's
very nice.
It's lovely. Yeah. I mean, Liverpool was always a lovely town, but I thought, I was quite impressed. It's a big area where you don't have cars, fuming around the place.
That's true. And they've got that nice dock area, and they've got the Tate Gallery up there, which is quite nice as well. So I haven't been there for a while, but I have been there since they regenerated, and it is nice. I've been watching the Winter Olympics, and I've been especially obsessed by the snowboarding and all the tricks, and that has been very exciting.
Yeah. So isn't it interesting how snowboarding has become such a sort of mainstream popular thing, when I guess, it wasn't was it so long ago that it was a bit sort of a sort of niche thing with, young folks, some sort of, graffiti artists, skateboarders, snowboarders and so on. And now it's quite the thing.
I did go snowboarding one time. I didn't know what snowboarding was, and I was excited. But then the instructor stood before us with, I kid you not, tape and straps around all of his fingers, and he said, "I've broken my fingers 5 times, so watch out when you fall. Watch out, don't fall onto your hands." And as a guitarist, I was then petrified for the rest of the day, and I could barely move. And you've got to sort of land on your elbows. They give you elbow pads. So I had to kind of try and fall forward. And I was just willing for the whole day to be over, because I spend quite a lot of time getting my fingers to do what I want them to do in micro movements of incredible precision, and suddenly being like, oh, and my friend broke his finger on that day.
It is genuinely, skiing similarly, and horse riding, these are genuinely dangerous things to do, and yet obviously very popular.
I've got a lot of respect, a huge amount of respect for the athletes in the Winter Olympics, and especially because it's so dangerous, and they have to. I think that adrenaline must be part of it, but they're pretty amazing. But anyway, that will be finished by the time this goes out. I think it will have just finished, but it's sort of quite a hyped sport, snowboarding, so it's exciting to watch.
It is a very nice example of which there are many, of the incredible power of achievement motivation. What people are prepared to go through in order to achieve. In some cases, not in my case, obviously, I'm prepared to go through practically nothing to achieve. But, people, you get into, and identity, which we've talked about, but achievement, motivation, identity, I think also not just for yourself, but also praise. It's very, very rewarding when you come first at something, or people go, wow, you're really, really good. And, that's part of how human species got where we are today.
So a little bit there on what we've been up to, but we are going to carry on talking about COM-B. Now, we have been calling it COM-B 2.0.
Yeah.
But now you want to give an update on this, now there's anxiety in the ranks about this COM-B 2.0, which has been announced.
Yeah, well, we don't really make announcements, do we? Things happen, and then they sort of get a momentum. But so I was at a really helpful seminar at UCL earlier this week. And one of the points that was made by the team there, the Centre for Behaviour Change, who use COM-B all the time in their training, and the BCW and so on, it's very much part of what they do. And they've, become incredibly adept at implementing it and helping in research projects as well as clients in various areas to deliver it. One of the points that they made was that what we've got here is not radically new COM-B at all. It's very much an incremental development of the original COM-B model in which we clarify certain things. So one of the things we clarify that we've talked about is this distinction between the sort of atomic level COM-B in the moment in an individual and what I've been calling population COM-B, which is the sort of aggregated COM-B over not whole populations necessarily, although often it can be, but groups of people, teams in organizations, sectors of society, drivers or whatever it might be. Anyway, so clarifying that, and also as we've been talking about over the last couple of episodes, elaborating the 6 segments of the COM-B orange, as it were, into a larger number so that it's easier for people to see how they can apply it in their particular scenario. So it's not a radical reorganization or anything like that of COM-B. And so the suggestion is, and as we speak, I'm not 100% sure of the best way forward. Maybe if people are listening and they've got views on it, they can comment. I still quite like the idea of COM-B 2.0 because it's enough of to my mind, it's enough of an update to warrant for people to pay attention to say, right, have a look at this, and this should help you in your COM-B work. On the other hand, I can also see that it's more a question of how you apply COM-B, and it's incremental. So there we are. I don't know.
So we've got to come up with titles for COM-B. I was thinking COM-B Strikes Back. Return of COM-B.
Maybe I thought COM-B
the Phantom COM-B.
COM-B 1.2. COM-B 1.01.
Yeah. I still like radical COM-B. I think that way, because then you can split it off into different factions. Because what you really need for this to take off is to have warring factions. Like religions have warring factions. That's what you need, and that will really drive innovation and cults.
Because as we all know, from capitalism, which has been so successful in exploiting, large proportions of the human species, what you really need is competition. But anyway, a bit of sarcasm there. Right, okay.
So, that was sarcastic.
Yeah, that was actually. But actually, it very nicely segues into what we're mainly talking about today, which is intention.
Oh, we've got there, haven't we? We're about nearly 10 minutes in.
Oh, my goodness. Intention. Because one of the more granular bits of COM-B, which we pull out specifically, is the extent to which people have a firm intention to engage in the behavior. Obviously, it's important. And what's interesting there in that regard is actually thinking about this competition between factions is that probably the most famous theory that uses intention is the theory of planned behavior. The clue being in the title of planned behavior, which was a development of the previous version, which was the theory of reasoned action, or TRA. And the theory of planned behavior arose out of a competition between Eisen and Fishbein, because I think it was originally Fishbein, I hope I haven't got this wrong, but originally Fishbein and Eisen, who came up with theory of reasoned action, for those listeners who don't know, essentially proposing that behaviors, or a lot of behaviors, arise from intention, intentions arise from attitudes to the behaviors, and from perceived norms around the behaviors. And then Eisen came along with the theory of planned behavior. And I'm going from memory, so and it was a long time ago, so I may have got this the wrong way around, but I think Eisen came up and said, we need to add perceived behavioral control in there. And so then there were 3 elements, but Fishbein wasn't having any of it. No, we still need to stick with the original version. So it became a competition. And from the fact that probably very few of the listeners have heard of the theory of reasoned action, and almost all of them will have heard of the theory of planned behavior, suggests that Eisen probably won. And for probably very good reason, because the idea of, as we've talked about in previous episodes, of your level of confidence, perceived behavioral control, self-efficacy, lots of different titles for possibly slightly different, nuances on essentially the same construct, is an important thing. Anyway, so that's sort of by the by, but at the very, very heart of what is judged to be the proximal cause of behavior in the theory of planned behavior and reasoned action is the concept of intention. Now, then that led, for very good reasons, to a study of a thing called the intention behavior gap, which is where you don't do what you intended to do. And that then has led to other theories that have, for example, attempted to very understandably focus on the one hand on what leads to intention, and then on the other, having formed an intention, what leads to the behavior. Now, one of the things, and this is where I'm in a roundabout way coming to this combi element, one of the things that determines the extent to which an intention subsequently leads to the behavior is obviously how strong the intention is, the level of strength. I really, really intend to do that. So there's this in the combi model, there is this variable to capture that. But it goes beyond that because, as we've talked about with prime theory, which has the notion of intentional plan in it, where there's a time gap between an intention and a behavior, all kinds of things can happen. You can change your mind. You can, something else can come up that's even more important than the thing that you intended to do. You can find that you don't have actual ability, opportunity, or capability to engage in the behavior. There's so many things that can interfere between the formulation of an intention and the behavior. That in some ways, the miracle is that we ever do things that we intend to do.
Yeah, we've spoken a little bit about the intention behavior gap. And I think one of the things we discussed was that what you sometimes want to do is try and get the intention and the behavior as close together as you possibly can. So you're trying to reduce that gap so you don't leave weeks or months in between intending to do something and actually doing it when possible.
Carpe diem, seize the moment. And you see this, for example, with smoking cessation, where the longer the gap, when you say, I'm going to quit smoking, if you make a quit attempt at that moment, then you're more likely to succeed. That just so happens than if you say, well, I'm going to make a quit attempt and it'll be tomorrow or the day after or 2 weeks' time. So one of the things that stop smoking advisors try to do, or should try to do if they're well trained, is to get people to set their quit date as soon as they possibly can to avoid this problem. People go off the boil. There's lots of different sort of metaphors for it, but so there's two things really that we've talked about with intentions. One is how strong is the intention, and we can talk a bit more about that, because what makes a strong intention, and the other is the timing in relation to it. But there are quite a few other factors that can help to ensure that the intention, it gets translated into the behavior, including a very clear specification of the exact circumstances in which you're going to do the behavior. What are you going to do in these circumstances? And that has formed the basis for quite an extensive amount of research on what they call implementation intentions, where to help people bridge this intention action gap, they go through the person is encouraged to go through all the kind of situations that they might face and be very clearly specifying what they're going to do in each of those situations to achieve that intention.
So let's say that we've just come out of January. By the time this goes out, it'll be late February, I think. And a lot of people will have done dry January. A lot of people will be around this time of year. Do you consider things like their alcohol consumption? So they'll be trying to make plans of how to either drink less or stop drinking entirely. So this is a situation where people will be thinking through their intentions. And what are you saying, that if you have a detailed intention for when obstacles arise, this will help you during the process?
Yes, that's right. And an example would be, let's say, dry January. Let's say you're coming out of dry January, and you've so you're going to start drinking alcohol again, but you want to make sure that you don't end up sort of, perhaps back where you started in terms of your overall level of alcohol consumption. You want to cut it down. Well, one of the things that you could do is determine a sort of set of implementation intentions around precisely what you're going to do in situations where you would have otherwise had alcohol. It may be, I'm in the pub, I'm with friends, I've had, let's say, 2 glasses of wine, and someone says, okay, who wants another drink? Your implementation intention there might be something like, I will go to a low alcohol beer or alcohol-free beer. Your implementation might be, I will go to a soft drink that I like, ginger beer or, And
then your friend says, no, come on, what are you talking about?
Yeah. And then you have an implementation intention specifically for that scenario. Say, no, thanks, that's I'm good. Or you find some particular form of words that's going to help. So the idea is it's all about having a very clear path to action for all these situations which you're likely to encounter, and firming those up as something that you routinely do. That it's not something you have to think about every time. Oh, how shall I respond? If you're a smoker, how shall I respond when someone offers me a cigarette? No, you've got your routine planned in advance, and it's something that works for you. So, and there is evidence, a fair amount of evidence to support that. And it obviously makes sense from a theoretical point of view as well.
So when we're talking about intentions and strength of intention, we also have to consider the fact that we don't always do things immediately, that we all have diaries, that we use Google Calendar or different things like that. So those have a sort of a strength of intention attached to each item on there, I suppose. The diary, sometimes we'll say we'll pencil this in. Sometimes it's firmed up. And usually if you're paying someone to be somewhere, they're much more likely to be there. Or if you offer refreshments at a location, then people think in the moment before they go, actually, they said there was going to be tea there and biscuits.
Yeah. Never underestimate the power of refreshments. That's a way of improving attendance at events. But it also works the other way, where anyone who's organized free events will know is that when you organize a free event, you're lucky if half the people who said they were going to come to it, if it's a sort of seminar or a work meeting or whatever. Whereas if you have a little charge, just a small charge, doesn't have to be much, that will make it more likely that the people who said that they were going to come will come. So there's sort of sunk cost issues there as well. But what I guess we're kind of circling round in terms of the intention action gap is that the intention action gap is not a quirk of the human condition. It's actually it's built in to what I was saying in previous episodes and what we've talked about a lot in our books, which is that the intention has to find its way through the rest of the motivational system at the moment in which it would be implemented in order for it to have an impact. And at every stage in that process, there's things that can derail it by virtue of other priorities that come up. And so one of the things we try, it's so ubiquitous in behavior change that we try to do when we're helping people to control their behavior, to do things that they set out to do, is to find a way of, first of all, making the intention as strong, as specific, as boundaried, and so on, as you can possibly make it. And that links it up with things like identity and so on. Why would you have a strong intention? But also removing or mitigating all those other things that can be getting in the way when the time comes. And the analogy, the metaphor that is used is the horse and the rider, as we've talked about before, the elephant and the rider, strengthening the rider and helping to tame the horse or the elephant.
And just to remind listeners and to tell people who don't know about it, this is a kind of metaphor where the rider is sort of your kind of planning human part of the brain, in quotes, and the elephant is the animal part of you, the one that's like, oh, well, that's the one that's really attracted to those biscuits at the event. And so your rider is saying to your elephant, don't worry, there'll be food there. And the elephant goes, okay, all right, do you know what, there's food there, I'll turn up.
That's right, yeah. And of course, one doesn't want to say that the rider in some way is a homunculus or a little person sitting inside your head with the steering wheel, because there isn't one. These are just two parts of your motivational system that are operating in a constant flux between them.
And I just want to go back a moment to when you were talking about the intentions. You said that you're trying to make them specific, boundaried, and strong, something like that. What was that?
Yeah, so intentions are more likely to win through in this process if they are, as we've said, specific. So in other words, there's very clear starting conditions for them. It's not like, I'm going to go to the pub and, if I sort of get halfway through the evening, I might, I'll think about what I'm going to do. I'll try not to, have another drink. That's not a very particularly effective intention. It's like, if I've had 2 glasses of wine, this is what I will do. So they're specific. You've got specific starting conditions and specific actions. They are strong often because they're tied to something that you really care about. An identity is one of those. We talked right at the beginning of this podcast about achievement motivation. If your identity is very much tied in with achieving a particular goal, then that is going to help to produce a strong intention. But it could be some other aspect of your identity as a good person, as a good father or mother or whatever it might be. So there's the strength. And then there's the boundaries. You want it bounded so that there's no sort of wiggle room, or as little wiggle room as possible with regard to it. So if you're thinking about helping someone to control their dietary behavior, for example, one of the ways in which these, at least very commercially successful, and to some extent also actually successful in terms of helping people change their behavior, one of the ways in which these sort of dietary restriction things like, cutting out carbohydrates and so on work is because they set very clear boundaries. I don't do this. This is not a food type that I will eat. That makes it so much easier for the animal brain to know what it's supposed to be doing. You don't have to keep, you don't get this sort of mission creep thing. Oh, well, I can have a little bit of this. So solid, strong intentions, specific starting conditions and behaviors, and clear boundaries are three of really the key things that help you to form good intentions.
Right. Terrific. I mean, I am thinking it's not a good idea to cut out a whole food group, but that's just one of those trends, isn't it, that happens. But in other circumstances, that sounds like very good advice. So we've reached the end of today's podcast, and I hope you've enjoyed learning about intentions, the intention-action gap, and learning how to sort of strengthen your intentions so you're more likely to follow through with behaviors that you care about and you want to achieve. So it remains for me to say thank you very much, Robert.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, as always.
And thank you for listening wherever you may be. And we look forward to joining you next time on the Unlocking Behaviour Change podcast.